The sound of laughter stopped Emily Carter in the hallway. It was past 2 in the morning, and the house was supposed to be empty except for her husband. The lights were low, the air still, and yet that quiet laugh floated through the space like it belonged there. It didn't. Emily knew that the moment she heard it. Her heart reacted before her mind did, beating fast, sharp, almost painful. She had come home early to surprise him. The business conference in Milwaukee ended a full day ahead of schedule. Emily didn't text. She didn't call. She imagined Mark's face when he saw her standing there, tired but smiling, ready to fall asleep beside him after a long week apart. It felt like a small gift, something simple couples did when life got busy. Now, standing barefoot on the cold floor, that thought felt foolish. Emily set her bag down slowly. The laughter came again, softer this time, followed by Mark's voice. Low, gentle, the same tone he used when he spoke to her late at night. When he thought no one else was listening, her chest tightened. She told herself not to jump to conclusions. Maybe it was a neighbor. Maybe a coworker. Maybe she was overreacting. But something deep inside her already knew the truth, and her body moved before she could stop it. She walked forward. The living room came into view, warm light spilling across familiar furniture. Mark stood near the window, one hand wrapped around a glass of wine. He looked relaxed, comfortable in a way Emily hadn't seen in months. Across from him stood a woman Emily didn't recognize. She was close, not touching him, but close enough that the space between them felt personal. They were smiling. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. That was what made it worse. Mark turned first. His smile vanished instantly. His shoulders stiffened. The color drained from his face as if he had been caught doing something he'd never expected to explain. "Emily," he said, his voice breaking on her name. "You're home." The woman turned next. Her eyes widened. She took a step back, guilt crossing her face so quickly it felt practiced. She didn't look surprised to be discovered. She looked surprised it happened this way. Emily stood still. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She felt strangely calm, like everything inside her had gone quiet all at once. "Who is she?" Emily asked. Her voice sounded steady even to her own ears. She wondered where that strength came from. The woman spoke first. "I didn't realize." She stopped, shook her head, and reached for her coat. "I should go." She didn't wait for permission. Emily watched as the woman walked past her, eyes down, moving quickly toward the door. The front door opened, then closed with a soft click that echoed through the house. Silence filled the room. Mark set his glass down with shaking hands. "Emily, I can explain." She looked at him, really looked at him, and felt a strange distance open between them. This was the man she married. The man who knew how she took her coffee. Who once held her hand through a long night in the hospital. Who promised honesty even when it was hard. And yet he felt unfamiliar. "Go ahead," Emily said. Mark rubbed his face, pacing once before stopping. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "It didn't mean please don't," Emily said quietly. He stopped talking. She walked past him toward the guest room, her steps slow but steady. Her suitcase waited where she had dropped it earlier, unopened. The sight of it felt symbolic in a way she didn't like. "Emily, please," Mark said behind her. "Don't shut me out. Let me explain." She paused in the doorway, her back still turned to him. Her hand rested on the doorframe, steadying herself. "Not tonight," she said. "I can't hear this tonight." She closed the door. Inside the guest room, Emily sat on the edge of the bed and finally let out the breath she'd been holding. Her hands shook now, the calm slipping away as reality rushed in. She pressed her palms together, grounding herself. She thought about the past few months. Late nights at the office. Mark distracted at dinner. The way conversations felt rushed, unfinished. She remembered how she blamed herself, thinking maybe she wasn't interesting enough anymore. Maybe work had changed her. Maybe marriage just became quiet over time. Now those memories rearranged themselves into something clearer and more painful. Emily lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. She didn't sleep. Her mind moved too fast, jumping from anger to sadness to disbelief. She wondered how long it had been going on. She wondered if the laughter she heard was something Mark no longer shared with her. In the living room, Mark sat alone. He replayed the moment again and again, wishing he could rewind time. He hadn't planned for Emily to come home. He hadn't planned for things to go this far at all. He told himself it was harmless. Just conversation, just feeling understood again. But the truth stared back at him from the closed guest room door. He had crossed a line. The clock ticked loudly in the quiet house. Each second felt heavier than the last. Mark wanted to knock. He wanted to fix things immediately, to explain himself into forgiveness. But something told him this couldn't be rushed. The damage was already done. Morning came slowly. Emily heard Mark moving around the kitchen, the sound of cabinets opening and closing, the coffee machine starting. Normal sounds that now felt wrong. She stayed in the guest room, gathering herself before facing him. When she finally stepped out, Mark looked up like he had been waiting for hours. His eyes were tired red. He hadn't slept either. They sat at the kitchen table, leaving space between them. "I need to be honest," Mark said. "All the way honest." Emily nodded. "That's the only thing I want." He spoke carefully, choosing his words like they could still hurt her more if he wasn't gentle. He admitted it started with conversations. Complaints he didn't voice at home. Feelings he didn't know how to explain. He admitted he enjoyed feeling noticed again, admired in a way that felt easy and new. Emily listened without interrupting. When he finished, the silence returned. "That hurts more than anything," Emily said finally. "Not what you did last night. What you stopped doing with me." Mark looked down. He had no answer. Emily stood and walked to the window. Outside, the neighborhood was waking up. Kids waiting for school buses. Neighbors starting their cars. Life moving forward, unaware of what had broken inside her. "I came home early because I missed you," she said. "I wanted to surprise you." Mark swallowed hard. Emily turned back to him. "Instead, I surprised myself. I didn't fall apart. I didn't beg. I realized something important." "What?" He asked quietly. "That I deserve honesty. And I won't stay where I feel invisible." The words landed between them like a boundary drawn clearly in ink. Emily went back to the guest room and packed a bag. Mark didn't stop her. He watched from the doorway, knowing this was the consequence he had tried to avoid. As she walked out of the house, Emily felt fear, sadness, and something unexpected beneath it all. Clarity. She didn't know what would happen next. She didn't know if this was the end or the beginning of something new. But she knew one thing for certain. Walking in that night changed everything. And there was no going back. Emily Carter woke up to silence, the kind that feels heavier than noise. Her mind replayed the night before in fast motion. Mark. The woman, the laughter, the glass of wine. Every detail was sharper than she expected. She realized that betrayal wasn't just a word. It was a feeling that settled in her chest, slow and heavy. She didn't reach for her phone. She didn't want to hear from anyone yet. She needed to think, to breathe, to feel herself again. By mid-morning, she decided she had to face the reality waiting in her kitchen. Mark was already there, sitting at the table, staring at an untouched cup of coffee. He looked smaller somehow, like guilt had shrunk him. Emily sat down across from him, leaving the space between them wide enough to feel like a river. She didn't speak first. She let him. Mark's voice was low, careful, like stepping on ice. "Emily, I want to explain." She nodded slightly. She wanted truth more than anything, even if it hurt. "It started with loneliness," he admitted. "I felt unnoticed. I didn't know how to say it. And then she was just there to talk. To listen. I never meant to hurt you. I never." His words faltered. He looked down, running his fingers along the edge of his coffee cup. Emily felt a mix of anger and sadness, but she kept calm. She had learned that nights she could survive things she never thought possible. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She just listened. Mark continued. He explained how it wasn't about replacing her, wasn't about choosing someone else over her. It had been emotional before it became anything else. Long talks, shared fears, a connection he should have nurtured with her, not someone else. Every word was like a small cut, but Emily didn't flinch. She needed to hear it. When he paused, she looked at him. "You made a choice," she said simply. "One I never agreed to." He nodded. "I know, and I'll have to live with that. I don't ask for forgiveness yet. I just want a chance to earn back trust. If you can even see that as possible." Emily turned to the window. Outside, life went on as normal. Cars drove past. Neighbors left for work. The world didn't stop for heartbreak, she realized. And maybe, she thought, she didn't have to stop either. "I came home thinking I could surprise you," she said softly. "Instead, I surprised myself. I realized something important last night. Something I couldn't see before." Mark's eyes lifted, searching hers. "And what's that?" "That I am stronger than I thought. I won't beg to be chosen. I won't settle for invisibility." The words hung between them. They weren't threats and they weren't ultimatums. They were truth. And for the first time in months, Emily felt a spark of peace in her chest, even amid the chaos of betrayal. She packed a small bag that afternoon and left for her sister's house in Toronto. She didn't know if this was permanent, temporary, or a test, but she needed space. The drive north was long, and the quiet of the car gave her time to think. She replayed moments of her marriage, the laughter, the arguments, the long walks, the quiet Sundays, trying to separate love from loss. Mark sent letters over the weeks. Not texts, not emails, not messages designed to catch her off guard. Letters, handwritten notes filled with honesty, accountability, and regret. He didn't demand forgiveness. He didn't try to manipulate her feelings. He just wrote, explaining who he had become, what he had lost, and what he hoped to rebuild. Emily read each one slowly, sometimes twice, letting the words sink in. They stirred memories not just of betrayal, but of the good things to the man who once made her laugh until she cried. The man who held her when she felt small. The man who promised to always be honest. Months passed. Emily learned to breathe again without fear. She walked in the park, went back to painting, reconnected with friends she had let slip away in the busyness of life. Each day she felt a little more herself, a little more free. One crisp evening she agreed to meet Mark for coffee. The first moments were awkward, filled with silence as they sized each other up. But slowly the conversation began. They spoke honestly about the past, about mistakes, about hopes for the future. No one blamed, no one begged. They just spoke the truth. Emily realized what shocked her most wasn't the betrayal itself. It was how walking in on him had forced her to finally confront herself to see her own strength, her own needs, and her own value. The moment that broke her also set her free. Mark admitted he still loved her, but he didn't demand anything. He wanted a chance, nothing more. And for the first time, Emily considered the possibility of reconciliation not out of weakness, but out of choice, with clarity and courage. They left the cafe together, not holding hands but walking side by side. Words had been spoken. Feelings had been acknowledged. Trust, fragile as it was, had a chance to grow again. Emily didn't know where the path would lead, but she no longer feared the steps. Sometimes, she realized, life doesn't give closure immediately. It gives clarity, and with clarity comes power. Emily had been hurt, yes. She had been surprised, betrayed, and forced to question everything. But she had also been reminded that she was capable of strength, forgiveness, and love on her own terms. The house in Chicago, the woman, the laughter, they became part of a memory she could revisit without trembling. And as she looked forward, she felt something she hadn't in months. Hope. Not naive hope, not desperate hope, but quiet, steady hope. The kind that comes from knowing you can survive and grow no matter what. Emily walked forward step by step, understanding that the story of her marriage wasn't over. But the story of her strength, her choices, and her own heart had just begun. And that truth, stronger than betrayal, guided her through the days that followed, reminding her that even the darkest nights can reveal the brightest parts of ourselves. She had walked in expecting shock. What she found was not only betrayal, but a mirror reflecting her own courage. And that, she realized, was the most powerful discovery of all.